Hello everyone, I'm Lexi.
I'm Frank.
And I'm Ben, and we're the Groovy Groundwater Group. And we're going to talk about some of the water quality issues with our groundwater and the shortages in Ottawa County.
Most of us see surface water sources every day, from lakes to rivers, ponds, and streams. What we're going to focus on today is groundwater, or water that we don't see. Some might think this is only important to families with homes on wells, but this water is also used to grow crops. And since we all eat, all of us should care about groundwater.
Did you just say wells?
Yeah?
You heard about the 3 holes in the ground out there?
No?
Well.
So let's jump into it. When we think about our basic water cycle, also known as the hydrologic cycle, we know that water falls from the sky, it evaporates back up, recondenses in the sky, and falls again as rain. But some of that water seeps into the ground, and this is the water that's known as groundwater, and it recharges our saturated zones.
Now obviously, all the ground we walk on isn't wet or saturated. That's because of something called the water table. The water table sits some distance below the surface, and it marks the top of the saturated zone. Of course, the unsaturated zone still has water. It just doesn't fill every available pore space. Below the water table, water fills every pore space, which is why this area is called the saturated zone. You can see this for yourself with this simple activity.
With this activity, you'll be able to see for yourselves how the pore spaces work below ground in the unsaturated and saturated zones. Here's what you'll need: a clear container like an empty jar, vase, or plastic bottle, and some dry beans.
All you have to do is pour dry beans into your container, and then add half a cup of water. You can see how there is water droplets and air in the beans above the water line, and this represents the unsaturated zone. Below the water line, all there is water in between the beans, and this means that this area is totally saturated.
Leave the beans sitting for about an hour and then come back to it. After you've left the beans sitting for an hour, pour the water back into the measuring container. You'll see that it contains less water than you originally put in. This is a great example of how water is absorbed by the organic material around it.
Hey guys,
Yeah.
did you warn them about the running water?
What?
Yeah, running water can be hard to catch.
Wells, where many people get their water, pull water from within this saturated zone. Many pull water from aquifers, which are areas of bedrock that are permeable enough to yield large volumes of water when tapped, enough to supply homes and agricultural operations. Worldwide, 97% of liquid freshwater is stored in aquifers, and more than 95% of rural U.S. population depends on groundwater for drinking.
There's 2 basic kinds of aquifers, unconfined and confined. Unconfined aquifers are called this because they have an impermeable layer below them called the aquitard, but the area above them is permeable. Confined means there's aquitards above and below the aquifer, giving it definable boundaries.
Aquifers are such a valuable resource because they provide a fresh, clean source of groundwater, and they do so sustainably as long as we don't draw water from the aquifers faster than they can recharge or contaminate them. This groundwater flow simulator shows how contaminants travel through the ground underneath our feet. Now, it isn't normal practice to dump things into wells, but it does happen, and here's how that can affect all the wells pulling from an aquifer. Notice how even though this well was the one that the contamination was initially put into, the contaminants have traveled all through the aquifer, and this artesian well is actually pulling up some of this contamination. You can also notice how some of the contamination is reaching the stream up here.
Next, we're going to look at what happens when things enter groundwater above the aquifer. As you can see, this spreads through the water table horizontally but doesn't penetrate the clay layer above the aquifer. This is one of the reasons that water in an aquifer is usually so clean. It goes through a lot of filtering and is protected from many pollutants by the aquitard layer. Now let's look back to when we first put dye in. Due to groundwater recharge, we're beginning to see this area have diluted dye, showing how the process of recharging groundwater with unpolluted water is really important.
It's important to note that not all aquifers are the same. There are aquifers all around the world, and they're made up of different types of bedrock, material, and sediments. Here in Ottawa County, we face unique challenges based on the composition of our aquitard layer, as well as our bedrock material.
So let's talk about our aquifer specifically. Our bedrock aquifer, also known as the Marshall Formation, has a thick, impermeable layer of clay on top of it. Now that means that normally, when water would infiltrate the ground and recharge that aquifer, with this one, it's no longer getting through that clay lens. And that means over the last 20 years or so, the water levels in the Marshall Formation have actually been going down, and some wells have been going dry. The other issue we have to deal with is sodium chloride. So the Marshall Formation is naturally high in concentrations of sodium chloride, and when the water levels go down and there's less water available, that means the concentrations of that water go up in sodium chloride, and that's not good for plumbing or for crops.
To address these issues, Ottawa County has launched the Groundwater Sustainability Initiative. The Ottawa Conservation District, as well as many other businesses and organizations in the area, are partnering with Ottawa County to make residents aware of the issues and educate them on what they can do to help. We are currently developing programs for residents, businesses, and agricultural producers. Follow us on our Facebook page or sign up for our newsletter at ottawacd.org to stay up to date with all of our upcoming programs. You can find out more information about the Groundwater Sustainability Initiative at myottawa.org/groundwater.
If you want to make sure you're a groundwater pro, we challenge you to take the Quizlet quiz at the link below and see how you stack up to others that watch this video. We have 2 more videos coming in this series with some delicious and informative activities. But here's the best part. If you take part in the next 2 activities, take a picture of your finished project and share it with us on Facebook. We'll randomly select 4 people that will win pollinator houses. Thanks for watching this video, and we hope you join us for video 2 out of 3, Build Your Own Edible Aquifer. We also want to give a quick thanks to the Outdoor Discovery Center for letting us be a part of this year's Makatawa Water Festival.
Hey Frank,
What?
what do you think happens before it starts raining candy?
What?
It sprinkles.